The village in darkness, the village was silent, covered in endless night. Fear had become the language of every heart. No one dared to step outside after dusk. The streets were empty, cold, and lifeless. Doors remained locked, windows shut tight. Children whispered stories of monsters in the dark. Elders prayed for the return of light. The mountain nearby looked like a shadowed giant. Even the animals hid away in silence. Darkness ruled as if it owned the land. People lost faith in tomorrow's sunrise. Every passing night grew heavier than the last. Hope was something they no longer remembered. Oh, a deep silence broke their courage. Fear was not outside, it was inside their souls. Nobody believed things could ever change. The stars above seemed too far away, and dreams were buried beneath layers of doubt. Every home was a prison of fear, and the night turned into their master. Whispers of despair spread from door to door. Smiles had disappeared from faces long ago. The village forgot what joy felt like. Even laughter sounded forbidden in the dark. The young grew restless, the old grew tired. Time moved, but life did not. Fear shaped every decision people made. Even small noises felt like threats. The shadows grew larger than reality. Every candle that tried to shine was blown out. No one wanted to take the first step. Every villager waited for someone else to act. But no one dared to rise. They chose silence instead of struggle. They chose darkness instead of light. They chose fear instead of courage, until one heart refused to surrender, until one young man decided to break the chain, until one soul realized that fear was only a lie, and that courage could set the entire village free. The first spark, he was young, but his spirit was unshaken. While others trembled, he stood tall. He looked at the mountain and saw a challenge. He looked at the darkness and saw an enemy. His heart whispered, "A fear ends with me." He picked up a single torch. It was small, fragile, and weak, but it carried fire inside, just like him. The villagers mocked his courage. They said a one flame cannot defeat the night, but he didn't listen to their doubts. He listened only to the fire in his soul. He walked through the empty streets with the torch. Shadows danced, but they did not scare him. He stood in the middle of the square. He raised the flame high above his head. The light was tiny, but it was defiant. It refused to be swallowed by the dark. Some children peeked from windows. For the first time, they saw possibility. Hope flickered inside their small eyes. The young man shouted, "A fear is not our master." His voice echoed against the mountain walls. Silence fell upon the entire village. The flame kept burning against the wind. It became more than fire. It became a symbol that courage could exist again, a symbol that fear was not forever. The villagers watched but said nothing. Yet deep inside, something shifted in them. A small crack appeared in the walls of despair. A small breath of life returned to their souls. He stood alone, but he was not afraid, because courage had already chosen him, because fire had already lived inside him. That night, the first spark of change was born, and it was stronger than the silence of fear. The torch was small, but his spirit was bigger, and his courage was the beginning of everything. The struggle change did not come easily. The darkness fought back with storm. The wind tried to snuff out his flame. Rain poured down to drown the fire. But he shielded it with his hands. He refused to let the torch die. The villagers whispered, "He will fail soon." But he whispered, "I will not stop." His body grew tired, but his will grew stronger. The night mocked him, but he mocked it back. For every drop of rain, his flame rose higher. For every gust of wind, his fire burned brighter. He fell many times but stood again. He cried, but his tears fed his resolve. He bled, but his blood painted his courage. The struggle became his teacher. Pain became his companion. Sacrifice became his strength. Every battle made his flame harder to kill. Every wound carved wisdom into his soul. He realized that darkness does not vanish easily. It tests you, it breaks you, it tries to end you. But the more it pushed, the stronger he rose. The struggle was not punishment. It was preparation. It was the sharpening of his spirit. It was the fire shaping his destiny. The villagers kept watching in silence, but deep down they admired his courage. They wished they could stand like him. They wished they could fight like him. And though they said nothing, their hearts whispered, "Maybe we can." The struggle was long, but he endured, because he knew one truth: the greater the darkness, the brighter the flame. And his flame was meant to light the world. The breaking point one night, his strength almost collapsed. His torch flickered weakly in the storm. His knees sank into the muddy ground. He cried out, "Oh, why must it be me?" The world felt heavy, crushing his soul. The villagers whispered, "He is finished." The mountain loomed over him like a curse. The night laughed at his broken spirit. For the first time he felt fear return. For the first time he almost surrendered. Tears blurred his vision, blinding his courage. The flame almost died in his shaking hands. He whispered, "Maybe they were right. Maybe I am nothing." But then a memory returned to him. His mother's words, "A fire only grows when it is tested." Those words struck him like lightning. They reminded him of who he was. He realized this was not the end. This was the test of destiny. The breaking point was never meant to destroy him. It was meant to rebuild him stronger. He wiped his tears with trembling hands. He pressed the torch closer to his chest. He screamed into the night, "I will not give up." His voice roared like thunder through the valley. The villagers woke from their sleep in shock. They heard the voice of someone unbreakable. The flame blazed higher than ever before. It grew despite the storm, despite the night. The breaking point transformed into his turning point. He was no longer afraid of losing. He was no longer afraid of pain. He understood courage is not the absence of fear. It is fighting despite fear. It is rising despite doubt. And at that moment, the young man was reborn. His flame was not just light anymore. It was destiny itself burning inside him. To rise from that night, he became unstoppable. The storm still raged, but he did not care. The torch blazed like a sun in his hands. The villagers gathered around him in awe. Children ran towards the light. Mothers whispered prayers of gratitude. Fathers bowed their heads with respect. The boy who once stood alone now stood as a leader. He shouted, "This flame belongs to all of us." The people gasped at something awakened in them. A spark lit inside their hearts. They picked up their own torches. At first the flames were small and fragile, but together they began to grow. The village square glowed brighter than ever before. Fear began to retreat into the shadows. Courage spread from heart to heart. The young man was no longer alone. He had ignited an army of light. Every torch lifted broke the chains of despair. Every flame raised shattered another shadow. The village roared with courage. They shouted, "We will not live in fear again." Their voices shook the mountain walls. Their unity broke the silence of centuries. The rise was unstoppable. The fire spread from street to street. The night was pushed back by their courage, and the darkness that once ruled began to fade. The boy had risen, but now the village had risen too. They became one. One fire, one courage, one unstoppable light. And from that day, fear was no longer the master. Courage had claimed the throne. The rise had become a revolution, and the revolution was made of fire.